Disclaimer: this video does not condone or endorse the activity of online piracy. I am merely providing examples of what leads people to resorting to piracy, such as media companies' incompetence. If you do engage in piracy, do so at your own discretion, and I'm not responsible if anything goes wrong. You know what sucks? Streaming services. I know, I've talked about the streaming market countless times in other videos, but I want to centralize all those points into one video, and also talk about some details I've glanced over. Streaming is the best method of receiving content, besides video sharing sites such as YouTube, with loads of content to offer. However, there are many downsides. Before I get too deep into this, I have to give some background on how we got here. Before streaming services were a thing, digital cable services introduced on-demand features around the year 2000, which would allow subscribers to watch movies and episodes of certain shows available for free at any time, included with the cable package. Then came along streaming, which gained traction around the mid to late 2000s. By the early 2010s, Netflix and Hulu became household names. After they became inexpensive, popular alternatives to cable in the early 2010s, all the other media companies like Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers, Universal, and Paramount wanted in on that action. Around the mid-2010s, all the third-party content licensed to Netflix from those companies were either yanked off Netflix, or only half the seasons were available on there. The shows were either added to Hulu instead, or weren't available on streaming at all until the 2020s, when all the big companies launched their own services. They all wanted a home field advantage instead of licensing out their shows. Later on, Disney bought out both Hulu and Fox and made their content exclusive to Hulu, and their Disney Plus service launched in late 2019, right before the pandemic. I remember back around 2019 to 2020, when the streaming wars went into full gear, when everybody and their mother wanted to start up their own streaming service. Some of them never made it, as Quibi was the laughingstock of them all. And now we're here in the present day. Alright, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first and foremost: the purging of content, and not having a certain show or movie available to legally watch anywhere. The biggest offender of this is HBO Max, despite the parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, owning Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. Only about 50% or less of their content is actually available on Max, or on any other services such as Hulu. You'd think they would want a whole library of entertainment to choose from, but it feels like we're going back in time to the book-burning eras. Not just because of censorship reasons, but also for cost-cutting measures. Like I said, some shows are not legally available to watch anywhere, as they are not on any streaming service, nor have a home video release, such as on DVD or Blu-ray. Meaning the only way you can watch it is through other means, if you know what I mean. I thought these large corporations were against piracy. Why are they encouraging it? If they have the rights to a show or movie, just put it on there. Not having an entire library readily available and constantly removing content is a major inconvenience. Let's also not forget when Warner Brothers Discovery purged over 60 shows from HBO Max back in August 2022 for tax write-offs, which ended up backfiring severely. What are they gonna do now? Write off even more content and fall into a downward spiral even more? So anyways, it wasn't just obscure shows that never caught on that were purged. Beloved fan favorites including Infinity Train, Final Space, and Close Enough were written off. Is Warner Brothers Discovery really going out of their way to be as anti-consumer as possible? In my opinion, if a company writes off a show or movie for taxes, it should become public domain by default, rather than locked away forever, never to be seen again. It's very disrespectful to the crew that worked tirelessly and poured their heart and soul into a project. It's like if they crumpled up your hard work into a paper ball and tossed it into the rubbish bin. And another thing, Max has to be the worst rename for a product or service ever. It's too general and vague. If they wanted to disassociate it from HBO, why not call it Warner Max? Besides, most people I talk to still refer it to as HBO Max, since it already has brand recognition and simply sounds better. Not to mention, a good chunk of the world has yet to rebrand to Max. So what's even the point? Going back to what I said in the beginning of the video, there's just too many streaming services. Nobody wants to be subscribed to 3 or 4, or possibly more different services to enjoy their favorite content. When you're paying for that much, you may as well be paying for cable. Just like cable, they also have tiers now. There's a budget plan that includes ads, and a more pricey one that is $5 to $10 more expensive. Similarly to cable, they constantly have price hikes, most notably Netflix, Disney Plus, and HBO Max. Wasn't the whole purpose of streaming services to get away from commercials and outrageously high bills? It seems like we've gone in a circle just to go back to the same thing, but in a different way. Remember the good old days when there were only 2 streaming services and pretty much everything was on there? I also remember Netflix being advertised as only $8 per month. These days, Netflix is $15 ad-free. Even though TV has its flaws, streaming should not be the replacement to television, and rather the two should coexist. It seems that every media company is putting all their eggs into one basket for streaming, which is not the brightest idea because things could change. Streaming should be building on top of television, movie theaters, and home video, rather than trying to take over everything. If you don't believe me, when Disney Plus first launched, they shut down a ton of international Disney and Fox channels in Europe and Asia. One more thing before I close out. In the past couple of years, most platforms have been cracking down on password and account sharing so they can pump up the amount of subscribers. Every time they do this, it just pisses off consumers, and either they cancel their plan out of frustration or find a way to circumvent it. The companies can find a million ways to make it more secure, but we're always one step ahead of the game. You are better off just buying physical DVDs or Blu-rays of your favorite films and series instead. Unless Warner Bros. Invents a way to make physical media disintegrate somehow. At least with physical media, nobody can take it away. All there is to worry about is disc rot, and keeping the disc free of scratches. I would not be surprised if the media companies go door to door demanding everyone give up their out-of-print VHS tapes, DVDs, and Blu-ray discs next. To be honest, streaming is just not worth it anymore, and I instead recommend watching YouTube or a free service like Tubi or Pluto TV. There is also other means. If you know, you know. Besides, there is no new content worth watching anyways, the same recycled, rehashed NPC Hollywood status quo slop. The streaming wars are coming to a close, and from the looks of it, nobody is going to win because of content purges and oversaturation, and that is why streaming sucks.